Hey, welcome back to Leslie and Lily, the podcast for business owners as they are learning how to market themselves in the digital sphere. My name is Leslie, owner of Lily Rose DMA, a marketing consulting agency based in Chicago, Illinois. So, family, today we have a wonderful guest on the show. Her name is Suzanne Culberg. She is known as the Nope Coach. And I want you to know, just in talking to her, she is hilarious. She is no nonsense. And I'm really excited for her to come on the show and share her story with you guys because I really think that you will be able to learn a lot, not just about yourselves, but also about how to make your business maybe just a little bit better. Hey, Suzanne, how are you today?
I am fantastic, Leslie. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. I love your background. It's super cute.
Thank you. I like yours too. Got the bright thing happening.
That's right. So could you tell us what exactly is a nope coach? What does that mean?
So many of us, people pleasers, overgivers, are really
Mhm.
quick to say yes if someone asks us something. Like, even before pausing to check in, do I even want to do this? Like, that's never even on the sphere of things. Or do I have time or capacity? It's like, no, I'll just fit it in. And we tend to cram so many things into an overbooked schedule already and then wonder why we don't get the success that we'd hoped for. Often because we overcommit and we overgive and we say yes to everybody else and no to ourselves. So I help folks learn to set boundaries
Mm.
with others, with themselves, uphold those boundaries, and say no to others so they can say yes to themselves and get the stuff done that they actually want to get done rather than having it forever on the one day list.
I love that. I love that so much. I wrote an article a few years ago after an experience that I had with a younger colleague of mine, where I was telling her the exact same thing. I was telling her a well placed no will get you further in your career than you ever thought or ever imagined. And it's interesting to me, one, that you can make a business just out of saying no and teaching people how to say no to other people. So there's something definitely for everyone, which I love. I wish I thought of it. Maybe I'll do that too. But I
Totally. I think it can become an industry.
it
The no
can.
industry. Let's
It
do it.
Yes, it 100% can because I have found, and you tell me, usually, obviously, it feels like it's more women that have an issue with
Hmm.
saying no more because we're taught to be the givers, we're taught to always be doing, and if we're not doing, then it is almost a personal attack to us. It's almost as if that's not the role that you were taught to be. So how dare you? How dare you have these boundaries? Have you found that in your
Oh,
coaching practice?
100%. Because we have conditioning, like good girl conditioning to,
Mm,
be polite and say yes and be accommodating and don't be demanding and don't ask for too much. And we don't ask for anything. And I think so
right.
often people see no as an ending, but no is a beginning.
Mhm.
It's all in context. If someone's like, hey, could you do this for me? No, I'm not available for that, but how about this? Like, you can, no doesn't mean hard stop, the end, don't want to talk to you ever. It just means a no for that or a not today. Like, do you want to do this thing? Oh, I'm not available today. How about next week? Or
Mhm.
it is an opening. Whereas when we don't negotiate, we just say yes and put down the things that we had planned, then we end up forever frustrated that we never get done. I know what to do, but I just don't do it, is like the
Yeah.
catch cry of so many of my clients. And then they're trying to find the next planner or the next program or the next however many steps. And it's like, you don't need any of those things. You just need to look at your own capacity and overcome the feelings of guilt for following through on what you said you were going to do for yourself rather than setting that aside for someone else.
Yes, and if you don't set those boundaries, then that can lead to resentment, and that can lead to other areas of your life just not being what you want them to be as well. I know for myself personally, early in my career, I definitely said yes to absolutely everything because that's what you're taught. It's like, oh, be a team player, always be willing to help, always do these things. And I was run ragged. I did more than anybody, and I was being paid the least. And they started to get upset when I would actually say no. I mean, I was actually starting to have panic attacks and all these things were happening to me. And then I said, you know what? Um, my health is more important than you. And that actually helped me move on in my career. That helped me get the confidence that I needed in order to even start the business that I have now, to just say, no, I'm not. And I've had to use those same tactics and those same things, even when it comes to like what clients I'm taking on as well. So I feel like in my personal life, saying no has helped me as well as in my business, it has helped me. But did you grow up saying, "You know what? No, 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 and actually I'm gonna be a business owner," telling other people how to say no, or how did you become the nope coach?
They say that you teach what you most need to learn so that you
Mm,
can learn it.
yeah.
I grew up, I'm the youngest of 4, and so it was very early on conditioning to not ask for anything, to
Mm,
be really, really quiet, and to kinda, like, stay out of the way. Mum and dad are busy, and I'm not saying that my parents were nefarious or that they didn't care for me or anything like that, but, when you have an unexpected 4th turn up in a set lifestyle,
mm,
it can throw a spanner in the works. So it was just easier to be quiet, not ask for things, stay out of the way.
yes.
And how I love how you spoke to the resentment before, because a lot of people, resentment is not a comfortable emotion. Like
Mm,
we don't like resentment and disappointment are the 2 that are just like, ugh. So how that played out for me is overeating, because
mm,
when I ate, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel guilty, I didn't feel resentful, I didn't feel shame, I didn't feel, I so I think for many people who say yes to everyone else and no to themselves,
mm,
whether or not they're conscious of that resentment, how it plays out often is staying up late, Netflix or scrolling or even doom scrolling and looking at everyone else who's got it together and saying, "Oh my gosh," in the river, paddling down the river of misery,
that part.
watching Netflix, eating ice cream or chips, drinking and thinking, "I'm gonna fix my life tomorrow or Monday." Monday's the universal
Mm,
day to change your life. And and then thinking that the problem is that you don't have a right schedule, or you don't have the right diet, or you don't have the time to exercise and all these kind of things. So I basically ate myself to 150 kilos, which is
mhm,
330 pounds. And I tried every diet known to man, and many I wished I hadn't heard of. You can look back when they say life's lived forward and understood backwards. I look at some of those things, I was like, what was I thinking? But when
mm,
you're that desperate, you will try anything. And then I
yeah,
reached a point where I was like, I'm an otherwise smart person. Why can't I figure this food thing out? And once again, lived forward, understood backwards, starting to set boundaries, starting to say no, dealing with the guilt of putting my kids in the creche and looking at their sad little faces while I went to the gym, or making a time to meal plan and prep, and the unhappy faces when nobody wants to eat this vegetable. But setting those boundaries, in their personal life, in my
yeah.
professional life, everywhere, and realizing that I could handle others' disappointment. I could handle, resentment. And if I didn't do the thing, like if someone said, "Hey, could you do this?" And I was like, no, their reaction wasn't my fault or responsibility. And they were really open to ask someone else. I think sometimes
Yeah.
we take it on like this mantle that we're the only person. There's 8 billion people in the world. If they're uncomfortable to ask somebody else, that's not our work. And just learning, what is mine and what isn't. And then eventually turning it into a business.
I love that so much. Oh man, there's so much to unpack. I just had a conversation with one of my really good friends, and we grew up, we've known each other literally our entire lives. And we both have had to, unpack a lot of, childhood trauma, going back to that, you do what I say do because I said do it, feeling like what you want and what you need. If you voice it, no one will hear it. So you do stay quiet, and it does lead to pain and resentment and those things. And then realizing that you bring that over into every area of your life, whether that is, with your partner relationship, with your children, especially when it comes to work, especially when it comes to taking on more work, or that you really should be the one promoted, or you start to resent when you see other people who are doing less than you get more than you. And it was really one of those things where I realized that I had to change. And and I do mean as soon as I consistently set boundaries and consistently, even though I was afraid, even though I'm like, oh my God, I can feel their anger, from me saying no. As soon as I was like, well, I'm going to have to do it anyway, everything started getting better. And now, when it comes to my friends and my family, and when it comes to any sort of working situation, people have learned how to interact with me because they know that I'm not going to do certain things. It's just like, that's a hard no, or this is maybe not now, as you discussed earlier. So, what advice would you give someone who is coming to you and they are burnt out and they want to get further in their career, or they're just feeling like their partner isn't, appreciating them the way they want to be appreciated? What are some advice and some things that you would say to someone who comes to you like that?
The first thing that I would say is that they're not alone. Like, I think a lot of us feel like we're the only ones, and
Mm,
because of social media, because people only post the highlight reel,
yeah.
and because these are the kind of conversations that we don't have because they're awkward or uncomfortable. So I think, realizing that you're not the only person who goes through this, because we think, oh, there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And it's like, no, it's just like the unspoken epidemic of just toe the line. And the second thing is, it will be uncomfortable the first few dozen times that
Mm,
you set the boundary, that you say no, that you say the thing. It gets easier. It's like a muscle. Like, if we were
mm,
going to go to the gym and you see that, like, rack of dumbbells, and you
yeah.
decide to go up to the highest end, and you might not even be able to pick that up off the tray. And so you need to kind of go down to the other end and pick up the little baby weight and start with that. And you don't want to start with a baby weight because you want to be at the other end already. Like, it's human
Yes.
nature. I don't want to do the reps. I just want to be fit.
Yes.
So learning to say no, or learning to speak up for yourself, is like doing the reps.
Mm,
So the easiest way I would say to people is to start with people who don't know you yet. Setting
mhm,
boundaries with your loved ones, your colleagues, your family, friends. They know a version of you over months, years. They have a picture of you in your head, in their heads, I should say. So starting with them is harder because they're used to that. So for me and for my clients, I'm like, start with something small. What's something that you might not want to admit to anybody else? Like, for me, I was the sucker for the add-on sale. So if you go
mm.
somewhere and they're like, "Would you like fries with that?" Sure. Like, I couldn't even say no to that. "Do you want to pay 10 cents for a bag?" Yes. Like, it was ridiculous. So
Mhm,
pick your thing that you always say yes to, that you're like, "I can't believe I do this. This is so embarrassing." But start with that and
yeah.
have your little celebration. Like, "No, thank you." Like, "No, I don't want fries," or, "No, I don't want a bag. I brought my own," or whatever it is. Start with these things, and then start, once you've done the really far out things, bring it in a bit. Like, if the school says to you, "Could you do something for the bake sale?" "Not this time." Or, so for me, it's looking at, okay, what do the school want? They want to raise money. So
Mm,
usually they're like, "Here's 50 packets of $4 chocolates that I bring home knowing full well that I'm going to buy them all. We're going to have $200 worth of chocolates it's not going to serve anybody in the household, but I won't allow my children to knock door to door. And even if they did, all those kids go to the same school. So they have their own 50 packets of chocolate on the bench." So
yeah.
anyway, I'm like, they want to raise money. They probably get, what, 10% from this, maybe 20. So I'm like, "Here's $50. Let's cut out the middleman. I'm not having
Mhm,
$150 extra of chocolates that I'm going to eat. I don't have the time or the hassle or saying, so here's a donation." So your no could be a yes in terms of what's the bigger thing here. Like if someone
Mhm.
says to me, I'm moving house, could you help me move? I have a bad back. It's not a great idea. What I could do is cook you a meal, because when we move house, what do we tend to eat? Like heaps of pizza. I could
Yes.
watch your kids so they're out of the way. Like, what is it that you're available for? So
Mhm.
no doesn't mean you have to say no to everything and kind of sit at home like the Grinch by yourself.
Yes.
But it's like taking a moment to look at what's the bigger picture and what is in service to you. Um, so what could you do? What could you help out in another way, not just the way that they've offered? And start that. And then over time, start to bring it in. And with family and friends and close ones, there may need to be a sit down conversation. So, perfect example, since the pandemic, the gift of that in my own household has been my husband also works from home,
Mhm.
but we just kept going the way we had beforehand. And I was like, why do I have to take the kids to school? Like he's at home. So I remember
Mhm.
sitting down. When you sit down with the person, make sure that they're actually paying attention, not while they're playing Xbox or, or whatever. Because sometimes people come to me and they're like, I asked them, they said yes, and they didn't do it. And I'm like, so how did you ask them? Oh, well, that would, no. I'd like to have a conversation. If it's going to freak them out, also too, like if I said to my mum, I want to have a conversation, she would freak out. My husband would be
Right.
like, okay, cool. So knowing the relationship, so you
Yes.
don't have them think that you're going to like break up with them or something. But
Right.
making sure you have their full intention, asking 100% for what you would like. I was like, I would like you to take the children to school, and then letting them discuss or think about it, like not expecting an answer on the spot. Because sometimes too,
Mhm.
we've been working up to this for weeks,
Yeah.
and then immediately they don't turn around and go yes or something, and we're like, what? Like, let them process and then
Yes.
start the negotiation. And it's
Yes.
just amazing how it works. And so many times people go, how did you get this now? I'm like, I asked. It's so much
Mhm.
what you, because we don't tend to ask for things. We hint, we nudge, we hope. And it's like, no. Flat out ask, and then deal with your emotions if it's a no,
Right.
or ask if there's a room to negotiate on this.
Mhm. No, that's very true. I've told the story before, but when it came to me getting the position I wanted at my previous job before I was became an entrepreneur, I was in a transition period in my life. So I was a teacher for 10 years, and then I decided that, I just don't really like kids like that anymore. Um, they're a blessing, but they're not my blessing. And so I was like, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. And I grew up with the internet. I grew up loving to, like see how people marketed themselves. I didn't even realize that they were marketing themselves. So I went back and I took courses on like what is marketing, like digital marketing, all these things. And while I was, looking for a new job, I ended up at a company and I kind of did their admin work. And I realized that they had no marketing plan. It was just, we do handshakes, very old school, very baby boomer type mentality. And I was like, okay, but you want to have people that are younger and you don't have a true online presence. Like, well, we have a website. I was like, okay, but you don't have social media. Like, people, that's where they're also looking. That's also a search engine for them. So I started helping out and then I helped out with in the marketing department, even though that wasn't my original job because I wanted to end up there. And then it became that I ended up becoming head of marketing. And while I was head of marketing, just that transition was difficult because I was still doing something else. They didn't want to hire new people. And I learned from, like the therapy that I went through and just, my own inner thing of like, I will never go back to where I was again. Like, I just cannot be that person. I would talk to my superiors and I would say, "Yeah, I can definitely do that for you. Which part of my workload would you like me not to do at this time?" So it just became you just told me that this is high priority. So would you like me to stop doing this in order to do this? Because I can if that's what you would like me to do, but I'm not going to. I made sure that they knew my hard stops. I'm like, I leave at this time. I do not answer my phone once I am gone. You do not have access to me. And that was for me personally. Some other people, they, like they're more flexible, but because I feel like I had been abused by work. I was just like, nope, these are my hard boundaries. And it caused me to become head of marketing, and it caused me to be able to build that relationship. And so there were people who were doing the most in my office and weren't saying no. And there was jealousy there. And I had to, talk to them. And I was like, you can do this too. You can say no. It's okay if you say no. But because they had built up always saying yes, it was a bit more difficult for them. So I do applaud you. And I really like what you said about maybe starting someplace with maybe not the boss that you know, or maybe not the family member. Because once you get in a situation and you're deeply entrenched in it, it does become a little harder. But when you practice saying no with other people, it does make it that much easier. Now, how did you turn this into a business? Like, I really want to understand, like, who was your first client that you said, you know what, I can get paid for this?
Well, it's funny. So my original business, so back in 2017, 2018, I did weight loss mindset coaching. So not what to eat or how to exercise, because as I said, we all know what to do. We just don't do
Mm,
it. But why do we reach for the food when we're not hungry? Why do we make the plan to go to the gym and buy the treadmill and it ends up an expensive clothes horse, and we just buy cheap and cheerful to keep everybody happy? Like, what is the foundations of this? And I coached on that for a number of years,
mm,
and I created a program called Why Wait. I still have the program with the same name. It's just the contents of it have shifted,
oh,
because for many of us, like, as I said, never told people how to eat or exercise. What I was teaching them was boundaries and, being firm with your word and following through and celebrating small things. So basically, my group program's been running, this is the 4th or 5th year. It's been running a while.
mm,
And just over 12 months ago, a couple of people came to me independently of each other and said, look, I don't want to lose any weight, but I'm really interested in your program. And it's Why Wait with a W, and it's an 8, which is supposed to be an infinity, but you can't get that on the keyboard. But anyway, so what are you waiting for? Like, I never technically had it as a weight loss program because I knew it wasn't going to stay there.
mm,
So the first person came to me, they were overworking. They were like, I'm working 80 hours a week. I want to work 40. Do you think you can help me with that in my program, your program? I'm like, 100%. So she joined. And then somebody else was wanting to write a book. They're like, I've wanted to do it forever. I keep putting it off. I'm like, yeah, sure. So a few people came in like outside the traditional niche,
mhm,
and I loved it. It was fabulous. And also at the same time, there was a person who'd done multiple rounds of the program, had lost 50 kilos, so that's over 100 pounds, and said as an offhand comment in a coaching session once, when am I going to get my transformation? And I was so curious. I was like, you've dropped all this weight, like physical weight. What do you mean by the transformation? And she
mm,
was like, well, I thought I would feel happy and confident. And that's the thing with losing weight, with saving money, with whatever your goal is. So often we think in the reaching of that goal, like once I've lost the weight, once I've got the clients, once I'm fully booked, once I have money, then I will feel this thing. And it's like, I'm still me. I just take up less space, or I have more money in the bank or whatever. So what we tend to do is we push the goalpost back. I need to have a
mm,
bigger sum in the bank. I need to be more toned, whatever that means. And I really realized the essence of the program was more about feeling the things now, because you can feel however you want today. It doesn't change the external, but so often we're changing the external, trying to shift the internal,
mm,
and then forever living in this like not enoughness. So at the end of last year, at the end of 2022, I rebranded entirely, took all the weight loss messaging out of my business and really doubled down on the boundary side of it.
mm,
And opened up, for the people who know, they're like, yes, I know I'm doing all these things, I'm exhausted, I'm not feeling how I hoped. And so we work on those inner feelings, like actually feeling our feelings and not eating them or watching Netflix or numbing them out in some other way. And in the beginning it's more uncomfortable because you've suppressed that for so long. So it's
yes.
like, oh, but then realizing emotions are like waves, they come and they go. If you tamp them down heaps, then you end up with the tsunami.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like learning the ebbs and flows like that we have in nature, in ourselves, and how to honor those.
Have you found that part of the reason why some people are having no when it comes to, or are having issues when it comes to saying no and creating boundaries is because they have lost trust within themselves?
Oh, 100%. Like your example you gave before at the workplace, I loved how clearly you said, okay, I can take this on, but what needs to come off? Like what needs to
Mhm.
come off of my plate? So many people don't. They go, okay, and they add in more. Or someone will say to them, could you do this for me, Leslie? It will take probably, they come to you at like 4:30 when you're supposed to finish at 5 and
Mm.
go, I've got this quick job. It will take 5 minutes. So you say yes, put aside what you're planning to do. The 5 minutes turns into 2 hours, and then it becomes this unwritten precedent that people can just dump stuff on you at the last minute and expect it to be done. And then eventually the person is so burnt out and resentful that they blow up at their boss. And then they wonder why on both ends. Whereas if you'd said the next day, actually, that 5 minutes turned out to be 2 hours. So in future, if you have something, I'm going to need it by lunchtime or whatever. And also, as you said, what needs to be taken off for me to accommodate this?
Mhm.
No sarcasm, no cheekiness, no, just these are the facts.
Mhm.
And I think so often, especially as women, we don't have that. We're just like, sure, like I'm thinking mum energy.
Yeah.
The kid gets sick. I can handle this or something. Oh, there's a bill. Oh, like it was funny. I had mum energy moment yesterday. My daughter comes to me 5 minutes before we go to school. She's like, I have debate tryouts today. I need to have written a speech. And I'm like, you could not have told me this last night or last week. Anyway, I was like, I have 5 minutes. That's all I have. We're not going to be late to school. So got a little, what do you call it?
Index
The note
cards?
cards,
Yeah.
index cards, wrote down a few points, said, here you go. This will have to be it. And it was funny. There was 50 of them who put their names down to sign up. And
Mhm.
when they came to the practice, unless they had an index card, they weren't allowed in. So
Oh.
they culled 29. So only 21 of them got through. And I was like, lucky she did bring it to me, because the few of the people like, I can just do it in my head. And school's like, no, you knew the rules. I love the
Mhm.
boundaries for that. There was a lot of parents ringing up unhappy. I'm like, no, if they were told and they were giving clear instructions and they didn't follow through, this is a great example of consequences of your actions. And
Yes.
anyway, she came home last night and she's like, I'm so embarrassed. Mine was terrible. And I was like, well, what did you learn for next year if you don't make the debate team? Because they're choosing 5 out of those 21. I'm
Mhm.
like, first of all, you may surprise yourself because we're our own worst critic. And second of all, what have you learned for next year? Because had
Mm.
you brought that to me even the night before, but preferably several days before, we could have had a whole different experience around this.
Yes. That's really true. I asked that question because I have found with clients that I have worked with, and also in my own personal experience, the clients that are the most indecisive and the clients that are the ones that have been a bit more difficult, like they're more controlling as well, are the ones that have trust issues within themselves. And so
Mm.
it's very much about, like, this is my baby. If it fails, it's all on me. And so even though you have no idea how to do this, and even though you hired me to do a job, you're not letting me help you. And so part of what I've done, even, I have my own program called Your First 30 Days Marketing Program. Part of what I go over is mindset. And it's just saying, you can do this, like, let's work on your mind as well as us working on your business as well. I definitely give, like all the marketing tips, and like this probably is where your clients are online. But for you to feel confident enough to go after them, you also have to work on your mindset as well. So I really completely understand. I'm like, I feel like people are just the same all over the world, and we
But
all
also
have.
too, in that trust issues thing, it's understandable. If
Yeah.
you've tried so many times before, if you've tried to launch a business and you
Mhm.
failed repeatedly, often we'll see that as evidence. Like we'll hold that up as the gold standard that like I'm
Mhm.
just not successful at things. Whereas if we looked at that on my desk, I literally have, and you've probably seen them before. I have this. You seen these like sad octopus
Yes.
that becomes happy octopus?
Yes.
So if you're like, I've tried to start a business, I don't know how many times, it's never been successful. I'm not very good at this. Like, what kind of energy are you taking into your next business venture? Wah, wah,
Mhm.
wah, wah. Whereas if you're like, this, I can see this in a different way. I've given this a go however many times. I'm committed. That I'm really good at this. I'm just not conveying it clearly. Like
Right.
perhaps I am not like see it in a different way. The circumstance is exactly the same, this many times. But instead of seeing it as this many fails and I'm fundamentally not going to be successful at business, like I've done my reps. I'm ready to
Mhm.
start picking up heavier weights now. Like this, how you see it. And as you said, hiring support. Sometimes in the past, you may have hired someone who promised you the earth because,
Mhm.
let's face it, there's some not great marketing out there with this laptop lifestyle, make money in your sleep and whatever, and you've been perpetually disappointed. And then you
Yes.
hire someone and they're like, okay, this is what I need from you. And you're like, excuse me, I thought you were just suddenly going to churn this out and I was going to make millions. And it's like, no, this is a co-creation.
That
I think it'd
part.
be understandable there would be a little bit of mistrust there at the
Mhm.
beginning, but just that's totally normal for anyone listening. Yeah, some people do promise the earth and don't ask for anything. That's more we should be more dubious about that than if someone's
Mhm.
like, "Okay, I need this wording, this pictures, this, like this is how we work together to
Right.
create your business."
No, and it's a good learning experience, for anybody who is a marketer or anything like that. And also, if you're trying to hire a marketer, it is a co-creation. You really should be asked, like, who are you as a brand? Like, what are your brand colors? What is your voice? Are you more serious? Are you not? Because what I do is I give questionnaires out and we sit together and we talk. And we always say, okay, you're on all these social channels, but actually you only need to be on these three. And some people I'm like, actually, you only need to be on these two. Like, this is where your people are. So that immediately will make the pressure come off because it's like, oh, I don't have to do everything all at once. Right. I'm like, okay, now that we know what these channels are, we know the voice of this channel, and this fits you perfectly. Right. So now I'm asking, like, okay, if it's TikTok, we're going to need you to create some videos. I need to be able to do some behind the scenes stuff of you. I need you to be front facing if you would like that as well, because I cannot be the face of your brand, but I can help make sure that your brand goes out there. So those are all things that, they're learning experiences. But it is very true that when you perceive that you have failed multiple times, and I say perceived because if you've tried again and again, I don't ever consider it failure. It's just like, okay, I keep trying, but I don't know how to move this mountain yet. The fact that you are still trying, to me, you haven't failed, but I do understand the disappointment. That makes perfect sense. And
Well,
having
how
a
many
coach
of us
like you is good. People are like, you
I was
didn't
gonna say,
fail.
how many of us walked on the first go? How
Mm,
many of us could write on the first go? How many of
right.
us could drive on the first go? We tend to have these unrealistic expectations. I think a lot of the time because it's been what's been marketed to us by some people who aren't transparent or upfront with their marketing. It's like, I was an overnight success, 20 years in the making. Like, you don't see the behind the scenes of that. Like, it's funny, I see some people and they're like, this person, they went from nothing to six figures. And it's like, so what did they do beforehand? Oh, they had a
Mhm,
corporate career where they were charged out at $10,000 an hour. You don't think that experience contributed towards their business success? It's like,
mhm.
how many contacts or leads or things did they have from their previous? Oh, so I think
Yeah.
when we get in that compare and despair, rowing down the river of misery, which we all do, we all have
Yes.
moments like that. I call it my business period. At least once a month, I'm going to quit and go and stock shelves at the supermarket because it's a fact of life. Nobody
Yes.
talks about it though. They just talk about how everything's successful and it's great and they have this laptop lifestyle. And it's like, no, we all have moments where it's too hard and we don't want to do it. And I think more talking about that, you know, it's like it reminds me of you see Disney movies and it's like before, Cinderella was sleeping in the basement and doing all the stuff and then after she was a princess. We don't
Mhm,
see after the after. So when we see these online successes, before had no money and was living out of my car, and then after I'm
mhm.
a multi-million dollars, what happens after that? Like, so for anyone, if you're thinking, I've tried this so many times before and there's something wrong with me, in every other area of your life where you've tried many times before, that has allowed you to build the muscle. Like, you couldn't
Yeah.
literally just walk. You didn't have enough muscle in your legs to be able to walk. Every time you fell down, you got stronger. So every time you try something and you're like, oh, TikTok is not for me, that's great. Then you know something. You're like, that medium is not mine. For me, it was LinkedIn. I was like,
Mhm.
everyone's like, you've got to be on LinkedIn. You've got to be on LinkedIn. And I tried it. And I was like, yeah, this is just wholly not, it's not my scene, it's not my vibe, I don't enjoy this, I deleted it. People are like, how dare you delete it? I'm like, if people want to find me, like, they'll find me on other mediums. I don't need to be everywhere, because all I then am doing is checking my messages from spam in multiple places. I ain't got time for that.
So in what ways are you marketing yourself? We know you're not on LinkedIn, so if you see something on
I'm not
LinkedIn,
on
that's
TikTok
not her,
either.
it's a scam, not her. But how have you been marketing yourself in your business?
So originally I joined Facebook groups and I was
Mhm,
active in those, and that served me for a while. But it wasn't scalable. But I think sometimes we go to scale too early. We're looking for a scalable option, but nobody knows who we are yet, and we don't have any confidence or practice.
mhm,
So originally I was very active in a lot of, Facebook groups. I gave a lot of value. And then I remember they had offer days. It made, I'm an introvert, highly sensitive. Making an offer freaked me out. I was like 6 months before I finally breathed into a paper bag and made an offer on offer day. So, and people were like, "Oh, you can never grow a business unless you have like a website." I didn't have a website. I
mhm,
literally had a Facebook page and I posted in some Facebook groups, and that was the most fun I had in my business. And
mhm,
people would be like, "Oh, I follow your stuff. Can I work with you?" So that was my original. It's not scalable. It wasn't, I wouldn't say if you're starting out, it's the best thing, but it made me feel comfortable. It made me feel confident. I got to
mhm.
um, work with a lot of people. And then I went to the website, but it was similar to what you were talking about. Like, so I hired someone knowing nothing about websites and had been promised all this stuff. And then they were like, "What are your brand colors? Where are your photos? What are your copy?" And I'm like, "What? What? What?" I didn't know what any of this meant. It was the most confusing thing. And I've had my website redone a couple of times now because it's been a number of years.
Yeah.
And on the last redo, they're like, "I'm going to dig out and find this original website of yours," because I was like, it was so bad that a business coach I saw said, "Take it down and leave it with a landing pump coming soon page. It would be better." So, like, if you want to talk
Wow.
about website shame, I've been there.
Wow.
And so I've redone it 3 times now. The first one was just unmentionable. But like anything, it gets better. I think sometimes we think we're gonna be like Moses carving this into the stone and it's done
Yeah.
forevermore, and it's like, no. My current website I love right now, but in a year or 2, it will probably, it always has little tweaks, but I'll
Yeah.
probably refresh it again because I'm not the same person I was a couple of years ago. So I have a website, I have my own podcast, um, and I guest on podcasts. They're the main ways that I market now. And I also am up and coming on Instagram. I finally caved because I didn't like it because everything had to have a photo. And I am, the mum bun, the no makeup, the no whatever. I'm like, I have to have a photo. So, I'm getting there. But I do quite, and also too, with whatever format thing that you look at, you need to like it because you're
Yes.
going to be hanging out there. And you do it your own way. Like, I was like, as soon as I let go of having to have my makeup done and whatever, because on one of my websites, I did do that. I went and got professional photos, paid quite a bit of money. And my clients were like, "This is not you. We love that you wear ridiculous shirts, have the mum bun and whatever. That's you. So now
Mhm.
that's my brand." But if that's not you, I think the biggest message is market. You don't want to have this one persona, and then when people come in the door, they get a whole different experience. Like,
Yeah.
that's no wonder people get confused. So yeah, I'm just the way I am everywhere, and some people love it and some people don't, and that's the whole point.
So you okay, you said so much that I just resonate with. And I feel like that's more of everyone's, marketing journey. You're learning who you are as a business owner, right? As soon as you go and you decide to be an entrepreneur, you're learning as you go. Like that's just the truth. Most people, even if you've gone to business school, even if you've worked with other people, you being on your own, you saying that this is my business now, you're going to make mistakes. I love the fact that you started out with a Facebook page. I love it. I tell people that too. I'm like, you don't have to have a website right away. Eventually, yes, get one depending on what your business is, but having some form of digital footprint. Facebook is easy, Instagram is easy, TikTok, whatever. Just make those, and now they have it so that is it a professional page or is it your personal page, you can actually make those distinctions where, 5, 10 years ago, you had to have a certain amount of followers before they allowed that. But now anybody can do that. I also love the fact that you said that you were in Facebook groups because I've spoken about that as well. People forget that social media means social. You're supposed to be talking, you're supposed to be engaging with other people. And right now, because we have algorithms that give you content, it's mainly made it so that you don't have to be as social, like it's being fed to you. But if you actually go looking for something, if you actually go talking to people, you're gonna stand out more than anybody else, especially if you're positive, especially when it comes to those things in your business. And now, with the rise of podcasting, that's even better. It's a great way to network. It's a great way for people to see you, and your business, and for people who are more introverted, like myself, like yourself. It's like we're goofy and we're out there with our friends and family, but like other people, it can get a little scary. You're like, I don't know if I feel safe right now.
Yes.
So being able to have a medium where you can just, you're at home, you can be in your sweats, you can have your goofy shirts on, like you said, and you still are able to talk with people, and people introduce you to other people. These are all excellent ways to market. So, audience, do not in any way, shape, or form feel like you have to be on absolutely every single channel. Do not feel like you have to be putting 12 posts a day on absolutely everything, because that might not be for you. For
Oh,
certain
yeah.
businesses, that's great, but you have to remember, who are you? Who are your customers? And where are they? So they're not going to be, not every customer is on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube. And some people are, but they don't want to be advertised to on those channels. It's like, I come here to zone out. I do not want to be talked to. And other places it's, oh, I'm willing. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's cool. So you have to know who you are, and that's why when people like myself ask you about brands and things like that, it's so that we know how to help you the most. So,
I love that, as you said, how to help you the most, because, like, for me, I've made a personal decision which most people don't agree with, but, you do you. I'm not available for DMs. Like, do not
mm,
DM me. I don't wanna have a conversation that way. It doesn't light me up. Email all the way. Like, and I'm very clear,
love
if you
it.
follow me on Instagram, don't send me a DM. It says that because, like, to me, it's just back and forth chatting, some weird kind of co-regulation thing. It's like, if you wanna have a business discussion, send me an email. Like, but that's what works for me. Other people love it. They do lots of conversions. It lights them
Right.
up. But to me, I find it a distraction. But, like, what do you actually like? Some people love in-person networking. They like, I
Yeah.
feel so much better connected. I'm like, no, thanks. I have to, like, put on pants and do my hair and, like, sound profesh. Like, no. I did it for a while. I joined a local thing and I was like, this makes me want to die inside. So
Oh,
if you look
no.
at your calendar and you're like, oh, I just don't want to even get out of bed today, it's
Mhm.
not a sign there's something wrong with you. It's like, there's so many ways to market. You don't have to do the traditional ones. Just
Correct.
find what works for you. There's a difference between, there's a resistance, I don't want to do it at all because it's all too hard, or
Mhm.
I'm doing something, it's like putting on someone else's underwear. You can do it, but it's not comfortable.
Something that has helped me so much when it comes to marketing, and I tell people this as well, is I took the Myers-Briggs personality test, right? And just knowing who I am, it allowed me to understand how I best, can market to someone who I guess is like me, and how and what jobs are best for me. And so it's really important to know who you are. So maybe you have a business where you are going to need somebody who is going to be like, maybe like more out there. They're more extroverted, like they're doing more of the in-person stuff. Hopefully you can get to a place money-wise where you can hire somebody to do that. Like, it doesn't have to be you. Like, you can outsource those jobs. It doesn't always have to be you. And if you are in a situation where you have to be on, at this point in time, then schedule it in and say, okay, this day I'm going to be on at this time for this certain amount of time, and then I get to recover for this many days, or how it goes like that. It's okay to do that. And that goes with what you were saying earlier of being able to say no to things and learning how to. Because if you know coming up in the week, you're going to have to be around a lot of people and you know that that's draining for you, then you're going to have to bide your time, or not bide your time. You're going to have to schedule yourself properly. So you can say, okay, I can't say yes to this because it's going to drain me here. And then I definitely won't be able to do my best work moving forward. And so when you start learning who you are as an individual and who you are as a business owner, those are really keys to your foundation of being able to have longevity in whatever service that you provide. That also makes it so that you're actually happy in what you do. And it's not, as you discussed earlier, of, oh, I thought I would be happier here. It's these little things to allow you to set yourself up for success. And once you start doing these things and you start getting your little wins along the way and you start acknowledging those wins, then naturally your confidence grows. And even though you'll be in other situations as you grow in your career, and it still will be a bit scary, or you still might have some of your hangups, it won't be as deep as it was before, because you actually can look back and you can say, well, I did this and I did this, and I really can't do this, but I hired somebody who can. So I'm good. And it allows you to be able to have that life that you always see. But I also want to tell people that don't get caught up on the likes and the follows either, because I
Vanity stats.
I mean, like, I personally have the most follows on my Facebook page, and on my other social media, not as many. I think I had like 500 on one, and that took years, to get that. But I have people that I talk to all the time, and I have my clients and I'm making money, and it's fine, and I'm living life, I'm not in the red, I'm not doing anything like that. So just because you might see somebody that looks like they have all these likes, all these follows, all these things, it might not necessarily be true that they, one, are happy, or that their business is successful as well. Just throwing that out
That's
there.
such great advice, because
Yeah.
so often we do get caught up in the numbers. And the other thing I was gonna say on piggyback off that too, is no one post, no one podcast, no one email is gonna make or break your business. So sometimes
Mhm.
we put a lot of pressure on a particular piece of content. And when I heard that, and I just live by that now, I'm like, should I post this? I don't know. Yeah, it's not going to break me. So, and
Mhm.
usually it's kind of like that's the one that does really well. Whereas if I spend hours like, writing, rewriting, it's like cricket. So it's just kind of like, no one thing is going to be the be all and end all. So when we take the pressure off, it tends to become more fun. And when we have fun, we'll do it more often.
Yes, and people want authenticity. It isn't what it was 20 years ago. Like, we're living in a really great time just for you to be yourself. And there's somebody who wants to see you as you are. As you said, you got your professional shots, and they're like, but that's not you. So, being able to say that you have a messy bun, or being able to get all glammed up, there are people who love that. You have clients that you'll be able to serve, but trying to be somebody else, people today, they know that. They know when they're being
Mm,
sold to. They know when something isn't authentic. Like, we have been trained, because we are being advertised to so much. We know how to discern like what's real from the fake. Even if it kind of looks good, we're like, I don't know, there's something about it, and people are trusting their gut more. So to be able to say like, this is who I am, take me or leave me, to be able to have your boundaries of you saying, I don't do DM messages, I just don't. And if you want to talk to me, you talk to me this way. I mean, she has a business that is paying her money, and she isn't doing, the conventional things. Like, I say conventional things are a blueprint, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay there. It's kind of like, you can learn the rules before you break them. Definitely go and try this way and then figure out what works for you. We all have to go through it. And when it comes to people that go viral overnight, A lot of them don't have sustainability, right? So it's the same thing with lotto winners. Like you won the money, but within a couple years, you're broke again. The people that go viral that have been doing the work in the background are the ones that are sustainable. Those are the ones that stay because for the last 5, 10, however many years, they have been working and working on their craft. And that's something that I have to remind myself, as you said, because there are days where you're just like, okay, I just suck at this. I just suck at this. Like, this is terrible. Like, I just can't do it. And that's why I want more business owners on the show. And that's why I created this to give marketing tips, but really just to tell your story because it's an up and down thing. It's a roller coaster ride, and you have some rushes, and then you have things where you feel like, oh my God, this is going to take my life. Like, I can't do this. But you're able to stay on the ride. You're able to learn and market and grow and do all those things. So,
100%. Yes.
how can people find you?
Best place to find me is my website. So it's suzanneculberg.com, SuzanneCulberg. And on my website, there's my newsletter. My newsletter is sexy. It's so funny. People go, never call it a newsletter. Nobody will join it. Or you need a freebie. This is another thing too. If you want to make a freebie, great.
Mhm,
I made quite a number and it was a lot of energy and effort for me. And then I was like, does anyone actually ever read this? Or is it just another thing gathering digital dust? So in one of my freebies, basically in the middle of it, I gave an awesome freebie, like which was a ticket to my program. Of all the time, I had 200 people take that freebie. Only one person ever claimed it. So for me, it was like, why am I spending all this energy? Like my emails rock. I send an email once a week. It's awesome. It's
mhm,
fun. It's stuff that's not on my socials. So basically, that's how I do it now. So join my email list. And if you reply, I will respond to you. Me, not a bot, not my team. I absolutely love conversing via email because I do it on my computer. I don't have it on my phone. It's one of my
mhm.
boundaries. That's why I don't do DMs as well. Because I
Yes.
think, we have so much instant in this world. And it's like, things take time, especially things that are, meaningful, and transformation takes a lot of time. So my website, I've written a book. I've got my own podcast. Dance around on there. I absolutely love it. I used to have website shame. Now I have website pride. Put so much into that. It's absolutely fabulous. And yeah, I'd love to connect.
Awesome. And we will have all of those links in the show notes so that you guys can connect with Suzanne. Um, and speaking of programs, as you guys know, I have my program, Your First 30 Days. It helps you market yourself. And I do mean market yourself. So I show you what is your unique selling point? Who exactly are your customers? Where are they online? What verbiage will they most likely see as a trigger word to stop scrolling and actually look at your posts so that they can turn into customers. If you guys are a part of my newsletter, I am currently giving that as half off right now. It's not for too much longer, but there will be a coupon code in there for you so you can sign up for that as well. And I just wanted to once again say thank you so much, Suzanne, for being on the podcast. You are a wealth of knowledge. And I had so much fun talking with you. I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
And
Say
I
it
thank you
again.
for
That
having
part.
me. I had
Yes.
so much fun too. One thing, 10 years in teaching, I meant to say, hats off to you. I lasted exactly 6 months. I did
Yes.
teaching as well. I did a diploma of education. I was like, this is not for me. And I think for anything we've tried in life, we could look at it with, sad octopus
Mhm.
face of, oh, here's another thing I didn't work. Or you could be like, I gave this a go and I realized, this is another stepping stone on the path to the me I want to be. So I've done lots of things that didn't pan out. And I used to really get down on myself. And now I was like, you take little lessons from everything that you've done to where you are now. So yeah, nothing's ever wasted.
Very true. And teaching has taught me how to be a consultant. So it's because it's a part of teaching. And now it's,
Mm.
adults and not children. Because
Same. People
like
who
I
actually
can't.
want to learn rather than people who are mandated to be there.
Right. And yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. Like you're actually well behaved. But
For the most part, we all have
I
our
was about to
moments.
say, I was like, some people, I'm like, yeah, well, But anyways, you guys make sure you tune in next week where I will have another entrepreneur on the show sharing their journey, giving you marketing tips of how they are sustaining their business and just showing you that you can do it too. You can also be a marketer. It's hard, but we can get through it together. We're learning, we're growing, we're having fun. See you guys next week. Bye.